Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Welcome to another weekly study. In today's video, I'm going to respond to a question that a student had about one of the quiz questions in the, I guess it was the NASM online materials, but very good question. Easy to get confused on. It dealt with open and closed kinetic chains. And so the question was really pretty straightforward. All of the following would be considered closed chains, except the following, something like that, where there's four answers. Three of those options are all closed chain exercises, and there was only one left over that is an obvious open chain exercise. And so I believe it was Don looking at it, he's completely confused, and a lot of people do get confused by open and closed chain movements. And so I want to go over it with you just to make sure that everyone's clear on what we're talking about with open and closed kinetic chain. Sometimes we use the term kinematic chain movements, but NASM uses kinetic chain, which is absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's the general term that's used. And, the thing about open and closed kinetic chain, just the concept itself, is only confusing if you go too deep into looking at every joint and every part of the movement pattern, and you're not familiar with some of the terminology that we use in kinematics and biomechanics. And so that's why I want to help you today, just to dispel any confusion. It's really, really simple. So the first thing I want to just help you understand is that and this is the definition of open, what we call open chain movements versus closed. So open chain movements, very simple, simply means that within what's known as a kinetic chain, which is simply all of the limbs and joints that are involved in particular movements. Now, we from an exercise science, exercise training perspective, we just look at standard exercises. And it can get very confusing when you start to add in normal bodily movements like walking and this and that. So throwing a baseball, and that can get confusing, but you don't have to worry about that for what we do as trainers. And so we're generally looking at basic exercises with dumbbells and barbells, right? And that's why in this particular question, Don, there was, the bench press, I think it was lat pull-ups. The other one was squat, and the other one was a push-up, right? So you had bench press, I think it was pull-ups, right? Lat pull-ups. The third one was push-ups. The fourth one was squat, right? So A, B, C, and D. So those are your four exercises. An open kinetic chain movement simply means that in a given kinetic chain, the distal, okay, you got to know what distal and proximal means, right? The distal component of that kinetic chain, right, is moving with respect to the proximal portion of the kinetic chain being stable. Okay, now this is where it can get a little confusing. A closed kinetic chain movement is where it's the exact opposite, where the distal aspect of the kinetic chain is stationary, and the proximal component of the kinetic chain is moving relative to a stationary distal. Okay, let me say that again, just so you get it. Open means that the distal, the distance part of it. You want to know how you make this really simple? It's either your hands or your feet. If your hands or your feet are moving, this is general. This covers 90% of all the exercises you're ever going to deal with. If the hands are moving during an exercise and the body is not moving, it's an open kinetic chain movement. Let me say that again. If you're doing dumbbell curls, if you're doing lateral raises, anything where the hands are moving, right? Boom, like a bench press, shoulder press, lateral raise, dumbbell press, tricep pushdowns, it doesn't matter. If the hands are moving, right, and the body, which essentially is going to be the proximal, right? The midline of the body, or in this case, like the shoulder on a dumbbell curl, right? The shoulder is the proximal component of the kinetic chain, right? Arguably, you can say it's the scapula rotator complex. That's fine. But the hand's moving. You get it? So dumbbell curls, push downs, lateral raises, shoulder presses, bench presses. You see on a bench press, and that's why the answer was bench press. Why? Because the hands are moving, but the torso is not. Therefore, it's an open chain movement. Now, however you want to memorize that with mnemonics or, whatever you want to do, I guess you can say an open hand policy, open arm, I don't know, whatever. But as long as the hands are moving. Now, let's take the feet. So what I said was an open chain movement is the hands moving or the feet are moving, right? Because generally exercises that we do involve squatting, lunges, leg extensions, leg presses, hack squats, right? Those are the lower body movements. Upper body movements are the hands are pushing, whatever the case is. So open kinetic chain movements would be exercises where the body is stable, right? The body's not moving, but the feet are moving. What are the two main exercises that just right off the bat, that are open chain movements that involve the lower body? Right, leg extensions and leg curls. Why? Because on a leg extension machine, I'm sitting there and my body is stable. The proximal component of the kinetic chain ain't moving, but my feet are, right? My feet are going whoop, 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 whoop. So my feet are moving. They are the distal component of the kinetic chain, meaning they are the furthest component of the kinetic chain, the furthest part away from the midline of the body, right? Imaginary line here. You can think of your pelvis, belly button, whatever you want to. As long as the torso LPHC area is stationary, not moving, but the feet are moving, it's an open chain movement. So there again, leg extensions, leg curls are open chain movements. Now that you know this, give me another exercise, another couple of exercises that are open kinetic chain movements. And now you can just start thinking of all these exercises. Any type of rowing movement, cable rowing movement, any type of movement, right? Where the body, and the body can be swinging back and forth. It doesn't matter. The fact is the hand is moving like in a row. What else? Leg raises, you think about it. If the feet are moving, right? And the torso, the pelvic area is not moving or is stationary, essentially stationary in the distal, the feet, right? So the hands and the feet are generally the distal aspect of the kinetic chain. So that's open chain. That's pretty easy. That's basically all the exercises, most of the exercises that we do from a weight training or resistance training perspective. Now, it's the closed chain explanation that can get a little confusing. Closed chain is the opposite. It means that, and I'll make it simple, if the hands or the feet during any exercise, if the hands or the feet are on the ground or on a piece of stabilized equipment like a pull-up bar, okay, and it's not moving, the hands aren't moving, but the body is moving in relation to the fixed distal component, right? Distal is fixed, proximal moves. Distal, hands and feet are fixed in time and space, the body is moving. What are those main exercises that we know are hands stabilized, feet stabilized, and the rest of the body moves while the hands are not moving? Well, obviously push-ups, right? My hands are on the ground. They're not moving, but my body is moving in relation to my hands. And if my hands aren't moving, it's a closed kinetic chain movement. What's another classic closed kinetic chain movement where the feet are not moving, but the body is? Well, obviously the squat, right? So what the squat is, the feet are planted on the ground and the body is moving in time and space, right? Moving with respect to a stationary or stabilized distal aspect. Straightforward. Squats are a classic. Squats, push-ups. Here's where some confusion may occur. Pull-ups and pull-downs. Okay, what are pull-ups? Well, the bar is stationary, and once I grab onto the bar with my hands, do my hands move? The answer is no. So I'm pulling my body up to my hands. So my body is moving in time and space, the proximal component of the kinetic chain. The distal is stationary, it doesn't move, and my body moves in relation to my hands. My hands don't move, or my feet don't move. It's a closed kinetic chain movement. Pull downs are what? What are pull downs? Lat pull downs. You just saw my hands move, didn't you? My hands are moving. It makes it a what? An open chain movement. So the answer to the question then, for Don, who was confused, and I definitely understand it. You got to kind of think through this. You had 4 responses. So a bench press is what? It's an open chain movement. Why? Because on a bench press, dumbbell or barbell, my hands are moving, right? The distal aspect, my hands are moving with respect to a fixed proximal or my torso body. So as long as my hands are moving, it's an open chain movement. Pull-ups, closed. Why? Because we just said that the hands are fixed in time and space. I'm moving my body up to my hands and back down. So that means it's a closed chain movement. Okay. Push-ups, hands are stationary, closed chain movement. Squats, feet are stable, not moving, body is moving, closed chain movement. So I hope this is helpful. Remember, if you have any questions, you just post them in a group, reach out. We are more than happy to help out. Remember, the goal here at Body Design University is to help you pass the NASM exam on the first attempt. Okay, it's critical that you study correctly according to your learning style, read, write, recite, all those other things that you can access through our website, and just let us know how else we can be of assistance. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Thanks.